Started off really very basic and very light and delicate, and ended up really quite strong and fragmented. I did this piece at the end of our last session, not last week, but the one before, where we had a lovely discussion around words around the end of life and how we use those words and maybe misuse those words or use words that other people use simply because they're a template that everybody uses. And so I had come over here after that session and I'd just done a collage because it was an easy cut and stick thing. And then when I went home, I was able to carry on the conversation with my 18-year-old daughter and my husband and wrote out more words around the end of life. And we used humour, as we do culturally here, and funny things and things not so funny. And so then I stamped the words onto it was like this here, originally just a solid piece, and then I stamped words onto it. And then I started to think about, at the end of life, sometimes things are fragmented and torn apart, and when we try and bring all of that together, live a life after experiencing loss, there are holes in it. And what do we need to do with holes? So we need to patch them up and find a new direction perhaps, or find a new way of living without that person, or a new way of finding a routine. And so I am a stitcher by nature. I think in patterns and threads and fabric. And so I took the machine out and sewed it all together again and thought of the hole. There are holes in it you can see through. And so there are holes in our lives whenever people leave them, and there are voids. So that's what those represent. And then I just stitched on. I could have went on forever with it, but I did do a wee bit of work around then thinking, what holds us together? So pins and snaps, and I didn't put a zip on, but things, trying to get things that hold us together during those difficult times. I found throughout the whole of the course, Briege, that the arts are a great way, the creative arts for me, whether it's all based around words for me, and whether it was listening to the poems at the very beginning, which broke us in gently, and music and songs broke us in gently, and then, as I said, for this session, the discussion around the words. And yes, it did, because when I was stamping the words, which are some of them are difficult, like death or the home stretch or passed away, I deliberately didn't use black because I didn't want them to be that obvious, and so choosing the colour of sepia, which is something which can disappear into the background. Yes, yeah. So those were, I did think about that, and then maybe something that was a bit harsh like death, I covered it up. So there's a bit of lace over it, so it's not to fluff it up, but it's about saying it is there, it's underlying. It's not obvious at the moment, but it's there and it cannot be ignored, so it was. It really, really did. Because now it's tangible, I can show this, to my son who wasn't there, yes. And my daughter's name is Lucy, so Lucy, she was then got the phone out, she was Googling other words, so it made her think, but in a light-hearted way that wasn't about, someday I'm going to die and this is what I want you to know, but other words around what, for her, think of not positive. Well, I suppose positive. Yeah. A way that is positive to think about it, and it's not takes the fear away. So that was the beginning of that conversation, and I suppose
which is the hardest part.
There will be others, because she's so young. It's not something that she's only 18, so it's not something that you want to be having a sit down formal. But it's looking at this, and it's a light-hearted way, but it's getting a message across, and it's really important to open up those lines of communication in a nice way.